Welcome back to the 80 series build. You saw me do all the suspension stuff and the wheel bearings and all that, and today we're going to dive into the interior. So I got a brand new carpet I'm going to throw in this thing. I'm going to clean up the plastics. I'm actually going to fix some rust holes in the fender wells, so it should be a pretty good video and also a pretty awesome transformation once it's all said and done. So stick around and see how it turns out. I'm going to give you guys kind of a before look. As you can see, this carpet is trashed. All the plastics are just in terrible shape. Everything is just all around super dirty, but that's all going to change once we get all this stuff out and rip the carpet up. We are going to be doing sound deadening as well. This is the rust hole I mentioned in the beginning of the video. It's very common for the seatbelt anchor to rust out on these 80 series Land Cruisers, so when I get all the carpet out, it's going to be a perfect time to go ahead and fix that up. And I do have this on both sides, and I believe even one side has a little bit in the rear, so we'll get that addressed and no more leaks inside the truck. Here's the back of the truck. Obviously this is just tools and parts because of all the stuff I've been working on. You can see all the mud all over the panels. I think once I get this interior done and get some other stuff sorted out, I'm actually going to build a drawer system back here, kind of similar to what you guys have seen me build in the past, but it may be out of wood and carpet instead of the extrusion, just so I can kind of experiment with different methods of building. So I think that'll be pretty fun. But yeah, for now, all this stuff's got to come out. With all of our carpet and most of the plastics out of the way, I can give you guys a better look at these holes I'm going to be patching in the fenders. I know I showed you from the back side, but this is what it looks like from the inside. So now with all this stuff out of the way, it's going to be easy for me to just kind of cut around, get rid of the rusted areas, and I already got some metal that I'm going to end up patching with. That one over there is a little bigger. I know it looks scary, but it's not going to be that bad, and there's also a hole on that back side there. So it'll be a nice simple fix with all this stuff out of the way. Trying to do this with interior in here and sparks and possible fires just really isn't worth it, and it was a good excuse to get this new carpet in, get some sound deadening in, and all that good stuff. I originally brought home the plasma cutter from work, and I thought I was just going to plasma cut these holes out real quick. Turns out that sound deadening was actually pretty flammable, so I'd use a combination of the angle grinder, the Sawsall, the wire brush, and actually also used the torch. And with the torch, what I did was actually heat up the factory sound deadening, and then after you kind of cook it in a way, you can take a screwdriver or something like that and just scrape it right off, and that was the easiest way to remove it. We got our holes all cut and cleaned up all around the edges to kind of prep for us making these patches. So there's those two up here and then the one in the back. I gotta clean up the one in the back a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and start making some stencils. So basically what I'm gonna do is just take a razor knife and some cardboard and figure out what the appropriate size and shape is gonna be for this, and then I can take it in the garage and cut up some sheet metal. That way I can just kind of bring it out here and fit it right up and then tack it up. All right, for this rear hole, it's a little more tricky. I just want to show you guys how the cardboard's awesome. So then once I get that bottom part welded, I can just take a hammer and just kind of form the metal to where I want it to go and then tack it all in place and make it super easy. And I probably will have to put some other stuff on the back side here. Kind of hard to tell, but see how it kind of got into this mount? So this gap's still going to open, so I may have to put another plate in the fender well just to kind of close that up, but it won't be too big of a deal. And actually turned out to be a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be. Alrighty guys, we got all of our patches in. We got that side, we got this side. I know I'm not the best welder when it comes to sheet metal, but it doesn't have to be pretty. This has just got to keep the weather out. You won't be able to see it once the carpet and stuff's in there. I'm definitely going to end up working on my sheet metal skills a lot more, especially after this experience. Didn't quite go as easy as I imagined. This is the back hole, so there's a plate on the inside, and then I actually had to put another plate on the inside because there's this weird gap that goes behind a bracket on the fender well that was let just regular daylight through. So I ended up putting another one there. I kind of ground it down a little bit to kind of flush it out because we're going to be applying some coatings and stuff like that. You see here's another little rust spot. This just goes to open air down there. So I'm gonna pretty much put this in rust encapsulator and just kind of send it. I'm really not too worried about this body. You know, if there's a day comes where it gets too rusty, I can just put a new body on the frame as long as the frame's good. So we're just gonna kind of move on from here. I'll show you around the back side of this real quick. This side was definitely probably my worst patch out of all of them. It just, I don't know if it was just a rusty thin metal making it pop. Ground was bad. I don't know. I'm still looking into that. I'm gonna watch some YouTube videos and figure out how to weld sheet metal a little better. But like I said before, as long as it's keeping the weather out, we're gonna be good to go. So now with all of our holes patched, we're gonna work on to sealing this stuff up. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take some acetone, and all this is gonna do is remove any dirt and grime and anything that's gonna keep any of our other stuff from adhering to that surface. Probably wipe everything down 2 or 3 times. After that, we got our seam sealer, and we got some rust encapsulator by Eastwood. It's got good reviews online and people say it works amazing. I think first I'm gonna brush some of the encapsulator on there. I got these little brushes off Amazon. It was a whole big pack of them. That way I can just throw them away when I'm done. And all the little seams and cracks and crevices and all that good stuff, and do one coating on that, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back and I got some actual seam sealer, put that in the caulk gun, fill any good grooves and all that other good stuff, and really make sure moisture gets kept out. And then we'll do some rubberized like fender well coating or undercoating or whatever you want to call it. So hopefully this will keep the rust at bay and keep everything out. I think prep is going to go a long way, so I'm going to make sure I get it nice and clean with this acetone before I get started on the rest of this stuff. Even though it's just a small can, this stuff goes really far, and with these brushes it goes on really well. It is a little bit runny, so be cautious if you have anything you don't want this to get on. If you put it on thick, it will start to run, but it's great coverage and it goes on and actually dries pretty fast, and very happy with this stuff. All right, with all of our coats of our Eastwood rust encapsulator, all of our patches inside and out, next we're going to move on to the seam sealer. And I just got this from AutoZone. I'm sure there's some better brands out there, but this one I'm sure is going to do just fine. My goal with this stuff is, see there's like a crevice right here. So basically I'm just going to fill all these seams and crevices and everything like that, and just make sure that no moisture can work its way in there over time, or dirt or mud or anything like that. You can see here, it's kind of like a flap of metal where it overlaps. So that's a good prime example. I'm going to smear it all around here and just really seal these things up nice and tight so I don't have to worry about it in the future. We got the seam sealer on there. I just kind of used the caulk gun and spread it around, and then I took one of those brushes and just really just kind of spread it around. This is probably excessive, but I really just wanted some good coverage, so I just went ahead and brushed the whole thing. So between this seam sealer and then a rubberized coating of like undercoating I'm gonna put on after this dries, plus the other Eastwood stuff and the welding, this thing should be nice and tight to any mud and water and all that good stuff. Alrighty guys, we took some of the 3M rubberized undercoating and went ahead and put a coat over our seam sealer. Also just kind of did the rest of the fender well here. Did the same to the other side. Now we're gonna work on sound deadening. So I've gone through with a wire brush, cleaned this whole thing up. I wasn't sure how long it was going to take to get up that old kind of fuzzy stuff, but I actually picked up this head for a Sawsall on Amazon. It'll be linked in the description, and it's basically just a wire brush, and of course you hit the trigger and it works awesome. It gets up any dirt and grime and all that stuff. As you can see, this is all pretty clean now, and also kind of went back with a blue shop towel and wiped it all down. This is the same sound deadening I used on my truck when I did the rear seat delete. It's on Amazon. You know, it's pretty cheap. It's black. It's very sticky. You don't have to have a perfectly clean surface for it to stick well. And then also this is a roller kit I got on Amazon as well. A couple different sizes to kind of help you get in there and make sure that it's adhered nice and good. And then also just a razor knife that'll kind of help us shape these things as we put them down. In my opinion, putting down sound deadening is actually pretty satisfying. It goes on real easy. It's easy to cut and shape. You could just kind of score it with the razor knife and then tear it the rest of the way. And overall, it's a pretty simple job. Alrighty guys, we got the interior all sound deadened. I may put some extra on these walls later on after I get the carpet and everything like that. I do have some extra left. We'll go around to the front and show you how it turned out. So obviously I cut holes for all of my drain holes. I hope I never have to use them, but you never know. There's one in the front on both sides. I got pretty decent coverage in the footwell in the front seats. I wasn't too worried about getting all the little nooks and crannies everywhere. Later on, I will be deleting the rear heater. I'm just waiting on some coolant hoses. I wish they were already here because I could just pull that out and go ahead and do it. But I'll sound deaden this little section once that whole little heater box is out of the way. You can see I didn't quite go all the way to the edges. Even what I have done now is going to help tremendously compared to nothing. So it really didn't seem worth it to me to get under all this stuff and do everything up to every edge. And also I was worried about plastics fitting correctly. So if I were to do a bunch of sound deadening up to right here, then I'm worried about, you know, the plastics not sitting flush or anything like that. So I kept it pretty simple on the edges as far as that goes. What we got here is the carpet. And then this is some more of like the kind of like sound deadening material they give it with. Those are the fender wells, and then under that is the back tray. And you do have to cut your own holes for this stuff, so I'm gonna get Amanda out here and we're gonna figure out where all of our little extra padding goes, and then we're gonna go ahead and start putting this carpet in. The good thing about this company is the carpet they give you is larger than it needs to be, so you do have to cut to fit, but that also makes it easier to make it cover and fit all the areas you want. Later on, as you will see, I did make a mistake and end up cutting a bit too much off one part. All right, progress update. Besides just a time lapse, I've got the front in, and as you guys saw, the center console and all that stuff in. I've got my holes cut out for where my seats bolt, and that was a little complicated. Luckily, this is kind of like molded to this natural mount here, so once you line this up, you can kind of, it's easy to find your hole. And then I kind of reached under here and felt where it was and found it with my fingers on top of the carpet, went ahead and punched a hole through there. And all I'm using to cut these holes is just like a little razor knife, so just super sharp, so that makes it easy. I will show you right here where I did mess up pretty bad, because I just, for some reason in my head, I thought the whole console went back and it was big and wide, and it wasn't. So I cut this too short, so I just kind of put another piece of carpet in there to fill the gap. And then also this came up a little bit short. I think I'll be able to kind of shift this around and get that to hide that a little bit better. But I mean, other than that, this side turned out pretty great. The bulge you see here is from that rear heater that I'm going to be deleting. I kind of think they mold the carpet without the heater in there, so that's why it's kind of bulged up. But like I said before, I'm actually going to be removing that rear heater in the future, so once that's out of there, then the carpet should lay nice and flat. And before I put this trim more for this, for the edge trim, I'm actually going to go ahead and get the seats bolted in, because that's really going to hold the carpet where it's at and let me work with it accurately along these edges. So yeah, we'll get the front seats in, I'll work on putting this front trim in, and then we'll just kind of work our way to the back of the truck. Interior of the Land Cruiser is all done, and I can't wait to show you guys. It has been a little while since I did all of these projects. I've been super busy with other stuff and kind of pecking away at some of the little things that I was waiting to come in. So we'll go ahead and show you guys how it turned out. I'm sure you guys remember how this interior looked when I started. It was just totally coated in mud everywhere. I got some WeatherTech floor mats that I put in, and they give you these little things that you can kind of screw into the carpet to keep them held still. You can see I've been driving it around. They've already gotten a little dirty, but that's great because it's not getting on my new carpet. I did end up cutting the carpet a little too short right here. That's where you see this line. And I ended up taking a scrap piece and hand stitching a bit in there. So that's my mistake, and something to watch out for if you're going to do this carpet on your own. Get your center console in there and make sure that you're not going to cut it too short, because that was a mistake I wish I didn't make. But in the end, you know, not too bad. Still looks good. It looks way better than it did. All the plastics ended up cleaning up pretty good. There is a couple holes right here. I don't know what they used to have right here. May end up covering that up with some sort of switch panel or something in the future, or may even make my own center console. I've been kind of thinking about that. All this stuff, you can see I wiped this all down. It was a little cleaner before. I've been driving it around. I've actually put, let's see, since I fixed the speedometer, I put 117 miles on this thing. So I have been driving around just a little bit, just kind of feeling it out. I still got all that engine maintenance to do, but I just couldn't help myself. I did put a single DIN radio in. There was already a radio here, but it did not have a faceplate. So I went ahead and bought that on Amazon. It was pretty cheap. Popped the fuse in, and that was good. And I already had a LED dome light, which is cool. These dome lights in the back don't work. They just need some new bulbs, which I'll get around to. The headliner I haven't got around to cleaning yet. I'm gonna get one of those steam cleaners and try to clean that a little bit. The sunroof does work. I was a little scared to try it, but I opened it up and cleaned all the seals and all that good stuff, and all that stuff works great. I went with the WeatherTech mats because I have these in my truck, and they're an Amanda's 4Runner, and they're just awesome. They really do keep all the dirt trapped. As you can see, it's been dirty there, but here it's all nice and clean. We actually took this thing back at my buddy's house where it's real muddy, and obviously everybody's feet, all the dirt and stuff stayed on the mat, which is really cool. The door panels, they were in pretty rough shape, and I actually used some of that Wesley's bleach white stuff because I didn't have any interior cleaner, and put it on there and then scrubbed it with a bristle brush, and you could see, I mean, these things, it cleaned up really well. I was very thoroughly surprised with how dirty and trashed this truck was. The seats I did scrub some. I didn't kind of go all in on them just yet. You can see there's still some stains, but it being real leather, I think they actually will clean up even further if I decide to. The seats still function as they would from the factory. That carpet kit, you will end up with a seam here, but even from the factory there was a seam, and I'll get to this here in just a second. But that seat folds forward, they fold back, it locks in. You do have to cut the holes for the latch system, which is no big deal. I'd say the hardest part of the back seats was getting these holes and getting the bolts lined up. Because the brackets are spring loaded, they're wanting to turn and twist on you when you're trying to bolt the seats up. So that was a little difficult, but not too bad. All right, we'll move on to the back. So if you guys have been watching my channel for any amount of time, you'll know this is the drawer system from the back of Amanda's 4Runner, and she took it out because she was going on a trip with a bunch of girls in the 4Runner and they needed some more storage space for their bags. So, you know, I had it in the garage and then I was cleaning up and I was like, man, I really need this space back. So I threw it in the back of here just for now, temporarily. I am going to build a different style for the back of this thing, but it's pretty cool just to see what fits and what kind of works. A lot of space in this thing in the back compared to the 4Runner. Lots of potential as far as organization. I want to do a drawer system that's actually all completely wood and then coated with the carpet, so it's that nice clean look. And then it's going to have the wings that's filled in, and then I could even drill the holes on the side and have my CO2 tank here for airing up, and then my Dometic like Go water jug over there. I don't know, we'll just have to see once I get there. I don't ever plan to put the third row jump seats back in, but I decided to put these brackets in because they just kind of hold that carpet liner in there. And also, just in my head, for some reason, I feel like one day I'm going to be able to use these to mount something or anything of that nature, because you can just weld brackets to these or whatever, and they're nice and solid to the body. So I thought those would be useful. So I went ahead and kept them in there. Even if this drawer wasn't here, you could strap stuff down, run a strap from that one over to that one. I don't know, they seem useful, so I kept them. This is still the factory carpet liner for the tailgate, and I do have a new one, but I'm not putting it in because I think I'm going to end up replacing this whole tailgate liner with one of those ones with hatches, or I may even do my own hatches. It's just something I'm going to get into at a later date. This used to be black. I actually took a wire brush and cleaned it all up. It is steel though, so I'm going to have to end up painting this thing black before it gets all rusty. But for now, nah, looks good, just nice and sober. I really just wanted to get the interior of this thing together and kind of drive it around and enjoy it for a bit as it sat. Another big part of the cleaning process was these door jambs. As you can see, they're nice and somewhat sparkly clean, but they were just covered in mildew and mold. And once I scrubbed them up, I mean, this thing, it looks like fresh paint pretty much. I still haven't cleaned up the outside of this thing. I will. As you can see, there's plenty of panel damage and stuff like that, so I'm not too worried about it. You may have not seen that I actually got the 37s on here. I'll be doing a full video on that stuff when I go to do clearancing and all that good stuff here in the near future. But yeah, that's what they look like. They look pretty awesome. It drives pretty well for being on stock gears. I am gonna end up re-gearing. That'll be another video in the future as well. Another cool thing I did was a phone mount on the pillar. I utilized the bolt for your handle right here and just a ram arm, and then this is a Quadlock system. So basically my phone, it's like a case and it locks in, and once you get kind of like a muscle memory down, they're super easy to lock in. When you first get it, it's a little difficult, but yeah, it's pretty great. It doesn't really take up much of your field of view, but it's also nice because if you're a GPS or you're trying to go down a trail and see where you're going, it's nice having this right in your field of vision, because you know, you could just kind of glance left, see where you're going, and then also keep your eyes on the road. Easy to pull down with one hand as well, and that just unscrews, and I can swap it from this to my Tacoma, which makes it super nice. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it on this interior restoration. It was super fun to do, and also extremely satisfying to see how terrible this thing was and to see what it's become. And it also doesn't smell like mud and dirt in here anymore. Not that that's a bad smell, it was just kind of like a mildew smell. So having that fresh carpet in here and actually scrubbing some surfaces really got rid of that smell, and it actually just kind of smells like an old Land Cruiser now, which is cool. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more future videos on this thing, and of course other videos of other things on the channel. Just right now, this is kind of what I'm going after at the moment. I'd say next video, I'm going to be re-gearing the front and rear diffs to 529 gears. I'm going to be rebuilding the front knuckles, putting in some trail gear, chromoly axles, all new seals, and those are all going to be super detailed with torque specs and all that good stuff, so you guys can learn how to do this stuff at home on your own. So don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.